Oh, perfect. Okay, but, okay. Moderator, we're about ready to start. Just want to make sure you are set up okay.
Yes, this is a moderator, and I'm ready when you are.
Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, we'll just get her, yeah. All right. Well, it's a little after 1. I hope everybody had a nice lunch. And again, it was great to visit with our colleagues at lunch in person. So on to many more in-person board meetings. The next item on the agenda is our Access to Veterinary Care Task Force report. And I am going to turn things over to Dr. Nolan. Diane Prado is not here for our meeting this week.
Switching closer. Thank you, Madam President. I always wanted to say that.
Yeah, I did too in 2016, unfortunately.
I'm sorry that Diane is not here today to join me, but I'll make this hopefully fairly brief. We had there was a wonderful meeting. The CVMA had their task force meeting on April 6th, and they are doing a great job of putting together some policies and whatnot that they are going to, I think Grant will have to come up and tell me, I think it's 8 or 10 different areas that they feel they can focus on to really help address this. One of the things that really struck home with me was Dr. Michael Blackwell. He was at the task force meeting, and he really started out by saying and reminding us that this wasn't an issue that was created, by the veterinary medical profession or the veterinary medical board. It's not an issue that we can fix. It is just something that we can play a role in, and that was really encouraging to me, because at times when I think through what we've been doing and trying to think through how we can help, it's a little bit overwhelming, from a global standpoint. But it was very, very helpful. There were a few things that really struck home to me, and again, we're just getting started, and we have our next task force meeting April 27th, and I don't think the webcast is set up on the board website yet, is it? I mean, the link? The agenda is posted. Does it have a link yet? I don't know.
Oh, for a webcast?
For the webcast. No, that's not till later. Okay, but I do know that the agenda is posted, and we're looking forward to having some input from the 2 veterinary colleges, veterinary schools in California, and some of the students, some input as far as what's happening on those campuses and some input from students. But a couple of things that really struck me, and I know that as we move forward, the CVMA will bring forth their 10 items, is just continuing the discussion of utilizing RVTs effectively and also increasing their scope of practice, their abilities to do things. I think that's an area that we really can help with and at least look at. Another important thing that I think was kind of educational for me, we talk a lot about our regulations and our statutes, but we don't talk a lot about the policies and procedures in-house that help to affect, that we use to support those regulations and statutes. And I think that there are some possibilities of discussions on that might help to for instance, Jessica Sieferman and I have talked about me writing an article. I apologize, I haven't done that yet, on incremental care and actually having a discussion on incremental care. And I think there was a recent article in the AVMA journal about it too that was very enlightening to me. So some of that has to do with policies and practices. For instance, we've talked a lot about educating our expert witnesses and making sure that they're the right fit for a certain case. So those are areas I think that we can make progress in. That's my report.
Jamie, I may have missed it. Is the April 27th meeting, it's all virtual?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm going to be here in person, and you guys can all.
Everyone else is virtual, yeah, okay. Any questions from members of the board? Oh. All right, then I think we'll open it to public comment from people in the room.
Grant Miller, CVMA. We at the CVMA are very close to concluding at least the initial phase of our task force's efforts on access to veterinary care. And I would like to ask the board to just reserve a little bit of time at the next meeting for us to share with you our position statement, which we can provide to you in a letter, and then also the 10 points that we found to be relevant to the veterinary profession. Dr. Nolan's actually on our task force as a liaison to your board, and we're very appreciative of her input. I actually feel that this board has actually already done a tremendous amount to help in the way that it can for access to veterinary care, primarily eliminating the state entrance exams for both RVTs and DVMs is a huge barrier that's been pulled down. The fact is, though, that access to care has very little to do with the number of veterinarians that are in the state. It has more to do with the cost of veterinary care. So it is difficult to try to find opportunities, not only in the profession, but also with the board to find ways to address it. But I would like to be able to try to share with you at least what we feel we could possibly work together on to address that. And I agree that one of the things that's bubbling to the top is the expansion for RVTs to try to get a little bit more going with them. And we do understand that there's going to need to be some statutory change for that. But so far, it looks very promising on our end that our board is interested in pursuing that. So we'll have to see where that goes. But I'd like to just reserve that opportunity to share with you what we have coming, which should be ready by the July meeting.
Thank you.
Can I have a question for Dr. Miller?
Yeah, Dr. Miller.
Hi, Doc. I just wanted to know, does the CVMA, by any chance, is working with Align Care? Yeah, because I just...
Thank you.
Yeah, I heard they're kind of ramping up their activities here in California. So.
Sure. So as a point of reference, Align Care is... it's a model that was created by the University of Tennessee, championed by Dr. Michael Blackwell, who is essentially, one of the leaders in access to veterinary care. And the idea behind Align Care is that veterinary practices, social service or public nonprofit agencies, and donors can all team together with the clients to provide subsidized veterinary care. So, for instance, if the vet practice agrees to do a 20% discount and the owner agrees to pay 15% of the bill, then the remainder of the cost of the care can be funded through public philanthropy groups. So it's a partnership. And the Align Care model is being tested on a large scale in Los Angeles through the Southern California Veterinary Medical Association. Insofar as what we believe we can do as the CVMA, we believe that we can promote that and that we can help create template information to help local veterinary medical associations who want to do that on a statewide level. If we were to try to implement Align Care for every municipality in the state of California, we would need a pretty big philanthropic donor. So that is a difficult model to try to expand on that level. And in talking to Dr. Blackwell, who's consulted with our task force, the concept of Align Care was never intended to be implemented on such a wide-scale basis. It was meant to be more community-based. So if in your community you had a shelter program that could set up something with Annenberg or Maddie's Fund or, Duffield Foundation, then that would work in your community. So I don't think, I can be pretty honest in telling you that the CVMA does not have the bandwidth to implement something that wide of a scale in the state, but we certainly would like to promote the model and help have resources available should a local veterinary medical association or maybe a corporate hospital group want to implement it. We would like to be able to shepherd that and help guide them through, the resources that are available. The fact is that the University of Tennessee has already put out incredible guides on how to do this type of work. The key is, of course, creating a social network in which somebody glues it together. Somebody is managing the fund and finding the applications, and there is a lot of work to be done, but I will say that Dr. Blackwell's group has come a long way with creating a computer program in which you can implement that and make it work with a minimization of human power needed to make it happen. So I'm really optimistic about that. Honestly, though, I do view access to care to be more of a social service related issue. It's really a public health issue, and it's a One Health issue. And when I think now of WIC or HUD or EBT, I view access to veterinary care right in line with that. So when you get Medicaid or you get any other kind of social service, it really feels like the pets are just another member of the family who need that type of service too. And so I believe that we as the veterinary profession have a role to play, but I feel that it is rooted more in public health and social service. I think the Veterinary Medical Board has a very small role it can play. And it's difficult because it's not germane to what your board does. But I think you have a very impressive list of things you have already done in the vein that you can. And, the rest of it with the RVT expansion, we'll see where it goes, but it seems like everybody is of an understanding that that is something that we can explore, and that will probably be towards the top of our list when we give you a report in July, which we'll write a letter with our statement.
Thank you, and I wanted to see if you would clarify. It was my understanding that we really had 2 different hospitals that were acting as a pilot study in LA at this point, so it's not maybe as widespread as some might think. I think they're trying to tread carefully, right, to make sure that it is successful from the start. They
are, yeah. The SCVMA has agreed to be kind of the proctor, and they are looking to enroll other hospitals, but I think they're starting a little smaller just to test it out to see how it goes. But Dr. Blackwell will be the first to tell you that it is the largest scale that they have applied it thus far. And so he is, hopeful like the rest of us that it will have a good impact.
I just have a question. Is there a way for the CVMA to kind of determine the pulse of its membership as to their understanding of the role that they can play, in this access to care problem, and also like their willingness to participate? Because I have to just share, we do have a program like that with LA County, and we do understand that we are able to get donors. The problem that we're having is finding providers that would be willing to work with us. We do have a voucher program that provides, a certain amount of money, and the owners do come up with the rest of the bill. But the problem is we're having difficulty finding providers. And so I'm just thinking, if we're going to look at the 3 components of the system that we're trying to kind of provide access to care, we also need to fix the end of veterinary medicine about the willingness and the understanding of our veterinarians to be part of the solution.
I really appreciate those comments, and it already is paving way to the next step. So initially, when member Yanez brought this to the board, admittedly it wasn't really on our radar screen, and we recognized it immediately as being something we as the association had an obligation to explore. The task force was responsible in the initial phase to explore the concept and the issue and to learn about it, and then to bring to our board what our position statement will be and what the recommendations of the task force will be. The CVMA acts at the will of its board, and so these recommendations from the task force will be presented to our board in June, and then I hope to be able to bring something back to you or Dr. Noland to report in July at your next meeting. So my answer to you is I don't know what the CVMA can or will be able to do. We are limited in resources at our association too, but it is something that is of interest. And I think that the expertise that some of our members bring will not go unheard. And so it may be a point where we are calling and exploring further some of these models that are in place. And I think that the comment that you just made is really helpful to us because it wasn't something we've yet considered. So thank you.
Dr. Miller, can I just ask one quick question about the test programs in LA? And I guess it's at 2 clinics, I guess. How is it going? Do you know how they're, I don't know how long it's been going on, but how's it going? And are you able, LA is a pretty good market to find philanthropist partners, hopefully. But is it going fairly well, even on the smaller scale?
So my understanding is that it actually has not started yet in Los Angeles. That was my understanding.
Okay.
I do believe, though, that they have a successful program running in Georgia, in Atlanta,
I think they have 9 different running programs right now, and Los Angeles is their 10th and 11th.
And their largest.
Yeah,
right.
and they're by far their largest, I think.
So in listening to Dr. Blackwell describe the program to us, he said that the software that they have that integrates in with the veterinary management software, it works quite well to minimize the amount of human work necessary to implement the program. And one of the questions I had for him was, well, what happens when the fund runs out of money? Because if the fund is like an endowment that generates, some kind of interest, he said, well, it's automatic. Like if the practitioner, fills out the application online and submits it, then the money just gets sent directly to you. And I said, well, what if there's no money? And he said, well, then what happens is the system will halt and it will tell you that they're not taking applications at that time. So I do believe there are some starts and stops with it, as is the case with any social service, right? I mean, you spend the money until the money's gone, and then so he says it's very successful. I myself feel that rather than circumventing our government, it should involve our government because it is a social service public health issue. And this model is not designed to do that. The model is designed to completely let the community solve its own problem without the cohesion that would be provided by a government agency. And in California, I'm not sure if that's going to work on the scale that we have here with 40 million people. But so far, he said that it's been going well in the locations that they've done it.
Interesting. Well,
And I do believe there's a bit of quasi-government involvement in the social worker aspect because they're bringing in social services to verify the need, and they do play a role, but you're right, it's sort of a quasi-government involvement.
Well, what they're doing is they're offering social service workers a credential in animal social service. So they're actually have a formal training program through University of Tennessee, which will then give those social service officers specialized training in what animals need, and then they're trying to make sure that the resources, they want to make sure that the social service workers have the resources available to then pass on to their clients so that they can say there's this program available for you if you should choose to use it. So one more little comment, if I may. I do think that incremental care is a big topic that this board can discuss. I think that we already can do incremental care provided that the documentation is sufficient in our records. And I think that there will probably be an opportunity for educational outreach on how you document incremental care. We don't even have a form, like the CVMA has forms that talk about like if somebody doesn't want to do something, you have not an AMA form, but like a declined service form. I think those types of things are really important when you're looking at incremental care. And I think a lot of doctors are scared to really do incremental care and then to write it down because they think, oh my gosh, this is not okay that I'm not doing this blood work or I'm not doing this. And there are times when it is not okay. There are times when you have to do the blood work or you can't proceed. It's just too risky. But there are times also when you don't. And so I think that might be another topic for future discussion in which we can talk about outreach and education on, how can you document these things appropriately to meet your clients at the level that they need to be met at. And Dr. Sullivan had talked about that in his MDC interview. So yeah, so I think that there's a lot that we are already doing and some stuff coming in the near future here where we can put a pretty big dent in it for the portion that we can do something about. Yep.
And I would like to say that I have really enjoyed being on this task force, and it's been pretty impressive, the 10 different areas of I think, of interest were very thorough and very well thought out. So it's been very impressive.
Yeah, thanks for your involvement. I love task forces because they move quick, so very nimble. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment on the Access to Care report?
Okay, Bonnie Lutz, thank you. I have a real concern with the term incremental care. I'm really behind all of this. In fact, I'm involved with the line care, and I really think that I would urge the board and Dr. Bradbury, since you're talking to the experts, that we're going to have to get the experts aligned with this incremental care, because I see a lot of complaints, initial letters from the board coming through with comments about not being up to the standard of care because blood work wasn't done or a urinalysis wasn't done. Now, I understand under certain circumstances those things have to be done. Under other circumstances, if we're talking about incremental care, if we have experts that are blindsided, that are just looking at, you have to do every single thing for every single pet, then all of this talk about incremental care is going to fall flat on its face, because my clients are simply not going to be, they're going to be afraid to do it. So we need to somehow allow, and I'm not suggesting that you allow them to provide treatment that's below the standard of care. I'm not talking about that. But, when I was young, I went to a veterinarian named Dr. John Hamill, and he used to tell us, you can do 3 things. You can do nothing. You can do this, which you always knew that was what he wanted you to do, or you can do this. And I really understand incremental care, but it doesn't appear that the experts that are reading the cases for your board understand it, because I have a lot of cases where my clients are getting dinged for not doing everything on every case. So somehow those things have to be looked at together in order to encourage veterinarians in California to consider this paradigm. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public here? I think then we'll open it up to the moderator.
All right, thank you, Madam Board President. If any member of the public would like to comment on Agenda Item 7, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or you may simply raise your hand. And I do see some raised hands already. First, we have Karen Atlas. So Karen, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
There you go, you're unmuted.
You hear me?
Yes.
Hello, great, thanks. Thanks for having me, allowing my comments. My name is Karen Atlas. I'm the president of the Animal Physical Therapy Coalition. And we are a coalition who represents DVMs, PTs, RVTs, and consumers. And we've been sounding the alarm to the CVMB on the access to animal rehab care crisis in California for many years. And we did so even before the pandemic started, and COVID-19 has made access to animal care exponentially worse. Other organizations have also been sounding the alarm. The APTC commented during the October 12th, 2021 Access to Veterinary Care Task Force meeting and submitted documentation for the members to consider. We educated the task force on the realities of the access to rehab care crisis and as it relates to animal physical rehabilitation. We also submitted information to the board's October 21st meeting, and we are also did so for the board's January 19th meeting. Unfortunately, we have yet to have any of our concerns addressed or even merely recognized during any of these recent meetings to identify that access to rehab care even exists. So unfortunately, the board enacted regulatory language which further reduced access to rehab care by qualified PTs and by changing the status quo in regulations. So the APTC asks the board to consider these measures as a vital part of the solution to address the access to animal rehab care crisis in California. During the January 19th meeting, this board was specifically asked to identify all access to care issues. We have specifically identified this access to rehab care crisis for years with no resolve. We have taken the time to research the crisis and find a solution, but time and time again, the board refuses to even recognize it for what the problem truly is. We understand what needs to happen to create the meaningful change that California needs and that we've all been asking for all these years, but we need to work together, and we are asking you to work together with us. We look forward to leaning in toward a workable solution using factual information that serves the best interests of California animals and the people who love them. We feel encouraged that now that the facts were clearly presented during the meeting hosted by the legislative consultants of the Joint Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development on January 28th, 2022, we are certain that we can all move forward together with more clarity and unity. I also wanted to recognize that Dr. Miller's discussion on having the VMB play a very small role.
15 seconds.
Okay, that the VMB can play a very small role on the social problems of the access to care crisis. I totally agree with it, but this is a solution that there is a, that the VMB can make a difference in, and we hope that you will. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have GV Ayers, and GV Ayers, you should be able to unmute yourself. You're unmuted.
Madam President and board members, my name is GV Ayers, and I represent the Animal Physical Therapy Coalition. And obviously, I want to identify myself with what Karen Atlas has just testified to, and just encourage the board to consider this, to consider a holistic response, and not just the response to the issue that they have implemented in the recent regulations which they adopted. We stand ready to help. We stand ready to work together. We stand ready to have an identifiable solution, or have a good, safe, and effective solution for the issue of animal rehabilitation here in California. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and that's the last I see of comment for this agenda item. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't believe we need a motion on this since we're just receiving your report, but we look forward to the subcommittee meeting on the 27th, and encourage anybody who has the time to tune in. All right, now we're to, excuse me, the update and discussion and possible action on current legislation impacting the board, and I'm going to turn this over to Jessica Sieferman.
Okay, so first, I just want to acknowledge the different format that you'll see how the bills are laid out. Instead of just pure numerical order and House order, we broke it out into priorities based on what we saw would impact the board the most and the concerns that we had, and then other just legislation that we're monitoring but wanted you to be aware of. And I do want to say that in the board monitor section in 1773, B8, we do want to move that up into priority because we would like the board to take a position in support, but I can get to that in a minute. So and I do want to say that if any board members see other legislation like to move up and have us pay closer attention to and have full discussion, please let us know. We always move it up. So with AB 1662 is the first one under the priority legislation. This is the licensing board's disqualification from licensure criminal convictions. The intent of the bill was to allow applicants with convictions to do a pre-application process where they would provide information to the board, and the board, based on the information that they provide, will make a determination whether or not they're disqualified from licensure. The idea was they wouldn't have to go through all of the schooling to only find out that they're not going to be granted a license. So I understand the intent, and we often get those questions from either the applicants themselves or we get them from the schools. The schools will call us and talk to me about it. And we tell them the same thing. We have to, there's a criteria and regulation that we have to weigh everything on, but we get primary source information. So we do the background check, we get the fingerprint results. We have to get the court records, the arrest records from the arresting agencies. And when you compare the two, you can often find that the information based solely off of the applicant is not always the complete picture. And so I'd be very concerned with any board making any kind of determination based solely on the information that the applicant provides. But we do, when they do call, we try to give them examples of prior cases and things that we consider. We send them the regulation and we tell them the process. We tell them the stats that we have, the very low denial rate, and we try to help that way, which seems to help. But I'm really concerned with this bill. It's not going to do an extreme, I think, disservice for the applicant themselves, because what will happen is they go through this process, and we could say, yeah, from what you're telling us, it looks good, but then if we get the arrest report and it's completely different, then we'll deny them, and I think it's just an extreme disservice. Plus, there's no fee attached to this. So that means all of the licensees would absorb the cost, and we don't have the funding to do that, which we need staff to do it, because we're essentially doing the investigation process twice. And I think that while I totally understand the intent, I'm concerned about what it would do to our fund, and I'm concerned about the kind of, I feel like it's doing the applicant just an extreme disservice to base it just solely off of the information they provide. I did provide, as of April 5th, I know that Dental Hygiene Board of California opposed the bill, Board of Registered Nursing opposed the bill, engineers, that's a long name, but Board of Professional Engineers, Land Surveyors, and Geologists also opposed, unless amended to make it clear that any initial determination would be non-binding. Speech, Language, Pathology, Audiology, and Hearing Aid Dispensers Board also opposed, unless amended, to require a fee and require individuals to submit a live scan. Medical Board of California, they supported if it was amended to exempt them from the bill.
Clever.
I'd rather not do that, because we like consumers as a whole. So, so we are recommending an opposed position for the bill. So with that, I'll open it up to comments.
Dr. Nolan?
Curiosity, I think you threw a number out of 170 or something, but historically, is there a large number of cases like this? You know,
so I put in that we get roughly 160 convictions a year. So if they were all given the opportunity to do a pre-application process,
okay,
that's where that number came from.
Thank you.
Dr. Nunez? Oh.
I do appreciate the concept of it. There are many people that say that we're living in a new gilded age right now, with the opportunities of upward mobility is being decreased. So having said that, I probably would be more in favor of opposed unless amended. And the specific amendments I would like to see would be a fee involved in it, because essentially we are doing the investigation process twice. And also some sort of language that says that if there's something that we determine when we go through this for real is in opposition to what we found initially, then you can't hold that up and say, you said I can get a license, when, you know, the liability issues involved in that.
Something like a non-binding, like
right.
The board said.
So again, is it opposed unless amended, or support if amended type of language? That determines how strongly you feel about it, right? I would say opposed unless amended.
Okay, are there any other comments on this, Jennifer?
I don't have any comments on the board's stance, but I would think that there are plenty of opportunities here for maybe not within our board, but within the DCA to create something where they could, as Dr. Nunez stated, charge a fee to do the background, because I do understand the point of the consumer that they could potentially spend $30,000 to go to school and not be able to enter the field. And it seems like no matter how many we have in our board, the other boards have it as well. So I would see this as an opportunity for the DCA to maybe create some sort of avenue for that, where I'd rather spend a couple $100s on a background check and paperwork than, 2 years and thousands of dollars on education and not be able to enter that field.
All right, so Mark, is your motion, is your motion a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Bradbury.
I didn't have my hand up until after. I guess I also, I like the idea of being able to help people know ahead of time, like you were saying. But I guess I also sort of feel like the application process, that is the application process, like that is exactly what the application process is. And I'm leaning towards opposed.
And one question I had, though, I mean, the fee helps somewhat to, sort of go against the cost, but there's also the staff time involved. And my concern on that is we have an inordinate number of applications, and we have a backlog on enforcement and things like that. And this is more of a question to Jessica. I don't know how many we could get of these a year, but the time it would take a staff person, what's an average time to research? And again, you're only researching, I guess, what the applicants told you, right?
Yeah, so, and that's a concern too, that, if you do want to amend it, that's a pretty important part to not just rely on the applicant's information. But as far as cost, that is where that $71,500 comes from, is the staff cost, not the time, though. So if we already have a ridiculous workload for each of our staff members, and it's just going to add it to that unless we hire more staff. So it's a huge concern for what it's going to do to the existing caseload, knowing we're already going to do it again once they really apply.
Yeah, I would say, I guess, that I understand the concepts and some of the reasons for this. Has this bill been in committee yet? Oh, the 26th.
Yeah, the 26th.
First hearing. I would assume that it's going to get some more work done on it too. But as is now, I would oppose it, even because I think there's still gives people a misunderstanding potentially that they are qualified. If we do even if it's non-binding, you've got somebody that thinks they're going to be okay and then maybe turn down later. So I don't know if it causes more harm than good. But I do understand Jennifer's point about the request. And I assume you get questions periodically from potential licensees that say, I did this or that, and is that okay? Yeah.
And like I said, we get it from the deans too, and we can't give them a yes or no, but we try to be as helpful as possible to let them know things that we consider. We also do that when we do our outreach with the students. We let them know what our process is when you have a conviction. So we try really hard to educate them, to help provide guidance.
That's with the vet students, but the RVT students, they're a little bit more disparate in terms of what schools they're attending and things like that, right?
Yeah, we don't get many from RVT, we don't get many RVT schools calling, but we get RVT applicants who call.
Okay. Christina.
I think the other thing that this bill might have some unanticipated effects would be that people call, you say, this is something that would be considered negatively against your application, then they don't move forward with the process. But, 9 times out of 10, even with convictions, we tend to look at the whole picture, and they may get a license with probation, or, so it's just not a black and white yes or no type of a thing. So I think this process would potentially deter people from, moving forward with their schooling or their dreams.
Well, and another thing too is the thing that we look at is the time that has elapsed since then. So obviously when they go to school, there's going to be more time that had elapsed. So when they might not be something that we'd consider like right after it happened, but maybe after a certain period of time, which we always tell them when they call. But yeah, I was concerned.
Now, Mark, you kind of made a motion, but I don't know if it was seconded.
Yeah.
I want to get back to the initial.
I know that Jessica had given some examples of some other boards that had opposed unless amended, and I think that it included the fees and also the
With the live scan.
No, the liability issue. What
It was
non-binding.
Non-binding aspect of it, which is what I was originally going to propose, but there was some comments about how perhaps this really wouldn't work, especially it may take a person 10 years to go through all the educational requirements that they need to, just because it's not typically 2 years like a more disciplined or regular DVN program would. So that could add to the consideration on whether or not they're going to get a license. So I was thinking, is this more maybe an issue for the Access to Care committee? Because if it's about upward mobility of individuals and increasing the amount of members in our profession, is this more like Dr. Miller had said, there's some things that we can do and some things that we can't do. And if we are involved in regulating the practice of veterinary medicine, is this more of a social issue or a veterinary medicine issue? But I'd still be willing to put my amendment out there and see how it flies. If it gets a second, then we can vote on it. And that would be support or oppose unless amended with those two issues, the fees and the, I always forget it.
Non-binding.
Non-binding aspect.
And is there a second?
Nope. I guess I haven't said much, Jeff. I said anything? I really, and I guess I feel like the Board of Registered Nursing is kind of heading in the right direction. I just think that it's so involuted when you're allowing someone who has a criminal record to come and say, please tell me if you think that I might be able to do this, and then I'll come back later and find out for sure. I don't think that's within our responsibility as a board to have that kind of onerous, that kind of burden. I think the burden is on the person to make phone calls, to try to get information, to talk to, people. But I don't feel like it's the board's responsibility to do this twice. I think we end up, we do due diligence by doing it once. And so I guess I'm in favor of opposing it at this point, and that's just what I think.
You know, at the same time, I've had lots of blessings in my life to get where I am. But even still, I find a lot of this application process and all the rules and regulations that apply to getting a license a bit hard to understand. So even though the resources, I agree, you can just do all this work yourself, but it is asking a lot of a certain portion of our population to do that.
Jennifer.
I agree. It is asking a lot of some of the candidates. We have to think about equity when we're talking about this. So as an introvert, I can tell you it's painful for me to pick up the phone and talk. So we're asking these candidates to do their research, and whoever they're speaking to at our board is already going to do this work for free at this point. So that's why I think I agree with Dr. Nolan. I don't think the board has that responsibility, but I do believe somewhere within the DCA we can do that, where the candidate can pay a fee to at least get like a pre-approval, like if they were getting a home loan, pre-clearance. And yes, we know that other things can happen within the time period that they're going to school, but I use the example of maybe an RVT candidate, you know, wanting to know before they go spend, maybe they go to a private RVT school that's $30,000. A DVM student can spend $250,000 and a decade going to school. So I think there should be some sort of avenue. I agreed not within the board, but I don't want there to be the appearance that we don't understand. But I think somewhere within the DCA we have this, but not at the board level.
Okay, I'm still looking for a second.
Well, this is probably a question for Tara, but within our regs, don't we have sort of, I hate to use the word guidelines, it seems like an unpopular word, but you know, some verbiage that gives some suggestion of what a serious and timely conviction would do?
So in our regulation, that is linked in your memo, it's 2041 is the rehabilitation criteria that we look at with every single conviction. And that is available for everybody to see. Like I said, when they do call, we do provide that to them and help kind of guide them. So it's definitely written in regulations.
I'm not sure if our DCA liaison is prepared to speak on this, but that's a good point that was made. Is this something we can just tell the DCA to do?
I don't think so.
It would create more work for them and not us.
But again, that's not relevant. I mean, that's a good point, but it's the issue
The
is
bill is
the
asking for each
content.
individual board
Right.
to do pre-applications, and the information is already out there. I'm not sure if this bill, I think, could easily be changed to say that that's a response or a service that DCA can perhaps provide instead of the individual boards.
Are you suggesting that your motion to oppose unless amended require a fee provision, make the pre-application determination non-binding, and move the responsibility for the predetermination to the Department of Consumer Affairs?
That's exactly what I would propose.
Okay.
So just a couple things. So DCA doesn't have the authority to make those determinations. That lies with the individual board. So I would be concerned about DCA doing that with every single board having their own statutes and regulations as far as what qualifies them for licensure. Also, DCA is paid through pro rata. So again, that's something that everybody, all the boards would then be paying for them to do that. And there's nothing set up for DCA to do that because they're not the licensing body. They just do like an umbrella of services provided for the board.
Okay, then I will remove that portion of my motion, which hasn't been seconded officially. But at least I know that the DCA liaison will probably take back this discussion to leadership at DCA and see if they can provide some guidance or assistance or support.
I guess I'm confused because it's a position on this bill, but it's also a direction to the staff to.
No, I've taken back the motion, so there's nothing to.
No motion. The motion.
I've taken back that part of the motion, but the motion hasn't been seconded.
Yeah, so if there's no second, then the motion
had been, okay.
I would love for it to be seconded, but
Dr. Bradbury?
Seconded yet.
Can I make a motion to oppose?
I don't think you can because there's nothing to oppose. We haven't.
Yeah.
Bill.
She's making a motion to oppose the bill.
The bill, 1662.
Okay.
All right, I can be clear. I would like to make a motion to oppose AB 1662.
Okay. I'll second it so we can.
Oh, you're going to second? I was going to say good luck in a second, but.
Okay, so to be clear, the motion to oppose unless amended by Dr. Nunez failed because there was no second to the motion, and Dr. Bradbury has made a new motion to oppose the bill with Ms. Bowler seconding.
Yes.
Any discussion other than what we've done, talked about?
I don't think it's very nice of us, but the vote
I just needed a little
As
bit of
written.
clarity with the opposition. Are we just opposing it without any recommendation of amendments or anything?
You can do a couple of things on these bills. We could support them straight ahead, oppose them straight as written, or oppose unless amended, or support unless amended, and then
If amended.
determine, or with amendments, and then determine what we want to add to it,
And so the current motion is to oppose the bill.
to oppose it as it's written. Public comment on Bill 1662.
Stay up here.
Yeah, come on, say it. Yes, say it.
There's several chairs.
Okay, Bonnie Lutz. Yes, I really would recommend that you oppose this. I agree with Dr. Bradbury. There are other avenues. Well, first of all, I get a lot of clients who've had their licenses denied and then an accusation's filed, and then we settle and they end up on probation. So that's usually what happens. I haven't had anybody who was convicted of murder or anything like that. The other thing too is I get a lot of phone calls that I do for free, people calling me saying, you know, I'm about to go to school to be an RVT, but I got a DUI when I was in college, you know, and I basically talk to them about the regulation and about what will probably happen to them. I also deal with a lot of criminal attorneys, and I know that they're aware of this regulation. So, I mean, I think the information is out there for these people to determine whether or not it's worth their while going to school to be an RVT or whatever, if they had a DUI when they were in college or something. So, I mean, I just don't see it being something that the board needs to take on because the information's already out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here? I'll open it to, moderator, would you open the online?
Thank you, Madam President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on Bill 1662, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or you may raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I have one member of the public who has indicated a desire to comment on Assembly Bill 1885. Do we want to wait on that?
Yeah, let's wait on that till we get to that bill. Thank you.
Okay, so then we have no comment then for 1662. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Thank you, yes.
Uh-huh.
All right, if no more discussion, Jessica, do you want to call the roll and see where we are here?
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Abstain.
Dr. Noland?
Yes.
Dr. Nunez?
no.
Dr. Solocito?
Yes.
Ms. Bowler?
Yes.
Motion carries. Our quorum. That's the majority of the quorum. Yeah. Okay, motion carries. The next one is AB 1885. This is Colorado's bill for cannabis and cannabis products, animals, veterinary medicine. This is very similar to prior pieces of legislation authorizing veterinarians to recommend cannabis and cannabis products for animals. This bill does have an update since April 5th. The hearing date was yesterday, and it did pass out of committee. The analysis was also posted. And in support is your Best Friends Animal Society, California Cannabis Industry Association, California Veterinary Medical Association, California Normal, Good Farmers, Great Neighbors, the parent company, Vet CBD, Women United for Animal Welfare. And I do want to let you know that I did reach out to the author's office and met with them to share prior concerns that the board had with similar legislation, letting them know that the board hasn't taken a position on it yet, but was just sharing and letting them know that we were going to have a board meeting. And so if they had any information they wanted to share for the board, that would be provided, which I then provided to you guys. They had provided responses to the concerns regarding the lack of studies that had been conducted. And in response, they sent quite a lengthy list of studies that have since been conducted, and I provided that to the members. The concern about cannabis being available in retail facilities was also a concern, which they addressed in the response to you as well. So with that information, I was going to turn it over to you.
I'm waiting for the president.
Yes.
Just really very small point of order, but the link is keeps saying April 2022 meeting, and it's really April 2021 meeting in your notes. I'm sorry, but it kind of confused me for a little bit there, but it actually is the last April meeting, so you just might want to fix that. Right. That's all.
Yep. Yeah, I noticed. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
The link works, but it goes to April 2021, last year's meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, just a little, sorry, I don't mean to.
I see it, yeah.
All right, and there was no opposition as of that first analysis at yesterday's committee meeting?
Yeah, I looked at the analysis last night, and there were no opposition registered.
Okay. Dr. Nunez?
Did you say the bill already passed, or just made it out
of the committee?
Just out of the committee.
Okay. Got it.
Dr. Bradbury.
All right. Well, I think you guys know my position on this already, but I really feel like we should support this. I think it's time to move forward, and I think it's protecting the consumers to allow veterinarians to be part of this process. And I think that this bill does a lot. It may not do everything we wanted, but I do think that they're looking for our support, and I think it would be helpful for the consumers and the pets of California. And I think it's about time that we sort of start to move forward and pass this.
And did you make a motion just then? Or were you just discussing?
I mean, I could, but I feel like
that's okay.
I feel like people like to discuss things first a little bit, but
Jennifer?
I'm probably the most conservative member of this board when it comes to cannabis, so I'll just say this to begin with. I'm very hesitant to, with this language, it makes me a little bit nervous that it prohibits the board from disciplining a veterinarian for the purpose of recommending the use of cannabis, just because when it comes down to wording, we could unintentionally prohibit ourselves from being able to discipline for other things. What's recommending, what's prescribing, I mean, it's just the wording, and cannabis is such a hot topic, and we have done so much work over the years trying to get the wording right, trying to get everything out there, and it just makes me nervous. I was fine with the watch position that it recommended we take, but it makes me nervous. So.
And to clarify, we didn't make I don't think we made a recommendation to watch. That was the prior position that the board had taken.
Last year's bill.
Yes.
Right. Any other board members? Comments on this? We did take a watch position before, right? I mean, there have been several bills, so I want to make sure I'm straight. On last year's cholera bill.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Okay, then I will make a motion to support AB 1885.
Without any amendment requests.
I'm sorry, I'm coming to the table late, but I was a little confused about the dates. I know that the new date is January 1 of 2024 that we're supposed to come up with, I think the word is the guidelines.
Right.
It looks to me like the January 2020 date is still in the bill. Is that And so am I reading it wrong?
I think that was
One that we already did,
yeah.
and then, so why is it still stays in there though, for some reason, even though it's past tense now?
It's probably in there because they're two different things.
Right.
The first one is discussing cannabis within the VCPR, and the second one, the new provision, is for recommending cannabis.
So but 2020 is existing law.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks, I just was curious as to why they left it both in there.
And just, Jessica, just to clarify in reading this bill, the comments we had last year, I guess, and about things that we thought, we gave a letter to the author, I believe, on this bill. Was any of that incorporated into the language now, that exists now?
No.
Okay.
So we still have just a motion from Dr. Bradbury to support. So is there a second?
Both of our issues were addressed, and so I'll second it.
They were addressed?
Well,
They provided additional information.
the research and the dispensary issue.
Well, the dispensary issue still
No.
a thing, but they explained why
Yeah.
they're leaving it. Yeah, so they did respond to all of the concerns.
Okay.
Yeah. We may not have gotten everything that we wanted, but it was addressed.
So you're seconding the motion, Dr. Nunez? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion from the board before I open it up? No. All right. Open it up. This bill is, when is it again? 26, oh no, I'm sorry.
1885.
Yeah, I keep saying 384. 1885. Anyone in this room with comments? And I see nobody jumping up to the table. So, moderator, would you like to open it up to those online?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on Assembly Bill 1885, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. Or you may simply raise your hand, and we do have a Pamela Lopez who would like to make a comment. So Pamela, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go, you're unmuted.
I believe that I can hear all of you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic, thank you. This is Pamela Lopez on behalf of the Pet Cannabis Coalition, and thank you, members of the VMB, for your discussion on this issue. I want to respectfully highlight that we, as we have worked in support of this bill, have heard from legislators and from the legislature a lot about wanting to see the VMB indicate that they support this piece of legislation. So if given the timing of the California legislative year and the hurdles that we will have to get through in policy committees, you know, if the VMB wants to see this issue get addressed this year, it is, in my estimation, critical to our ability to get the bill through the legislature and to the governor's desk to have VMB support this piece of legislation. You know, I can't underscore how important you are as a board and a body in this process, and that is as it should be. After all, you advise on these issues in a very important way. I will also just, to the comments raised about potential concerns about the language being drafted in such a way that it unduly ties the hands of the Vet Med Board to take action against a veterinarian. You know, I cannot speak for Assemblymember Kalra, although I strongly suspect that we would be able to go to him and that he would be interested in working with the Vet Med Board to make sure that the bill is drafted in such a way that it does not unintentionally cause those consequences. That's certainly not the intention of the bill. The intention of the bill is twofold. One, to make sure that consumers have access to recommendations from veterinarians, so important. And two, to make sure that they have access to labels and instructions on products that are intended for animal therapeutic use. As you may be well aware, these products, pet cannabis products, were on the market, and about 10,000 purchases were made per year before they were pulled from the market for about 2.5 years. So the analogy that I use is that pet parents can still buy baby Tylenol, but now they can't talk to their pediatrician about it, and now they cannot purchase products with clear labels and instructions. And we've seen an uptick in the number of loving, well-meaning pet parents who have accidentally made their pet ill because in the 2.5 years that they could access this product, they realized
15
that
seconds.
cannabis was life-saving for epilepsy. They're not going to stop using it. This is about providing information so that they can do a good job in caring for their pets. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, the next request for comment is from Paul, Susan Hansberry, and Tibin. And Paul, Susan Hansberry, Tibin, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go. You're unmuted.
To speak after me, if that's acceptable. Hello, board. This is Paul Hansberry from Lovingly and Legally. Perhaps some of you remember me from years gone by. We're still here, and with regards to AB 1885, I'm sure that someone addressed those issues, but I'm not sure it was to your satisfaction. I want you to make no mistake. This bill is driven by corporate greed and nothing else. This bill allows corporations to manufacture products for animals sold in adult use dispensaries for their profit, period. The sponsors of this bill brag that it finally allows veterinarians to recommend, but that's misleading. Let's put it that way. All it does is tell the veterinary medical board that you, the board, can't discipline veterinarians for recommending the products that the corporate entrepreneurs intend to sell. It authorizes veterinary cannabis products to be manufactured and sold in adult use dispensaries. The only guidance that's required is whatever the marketing propaganda the salesman tells the bud tender. This bill is using the veterinarian as a passive salesperson for the products they want to introduce to the marketplace instead of the doctors that they really are. This bill is treating the veterinarians, their clients, and their four-legged family members as a cash cow, and we're not buying it. Unless a veterinarian's recommendation is recognized by the Department of Cannabis Control, the DCC, as a legitimate recommendation, giving parity with medical doctors and their patients, therefore making the animals being classified as patients like humans, the research funding that's allocated by Proposition 64 will never be granted for veterinary research. This bill does not do that. Veterinarians and their clients have been waiting for so very long, they're willing to take anything, even this bill. Did you know that one of the drawbacks for cannabis research is that the humans are afraid they'll be given the placebo? Did you know that there will be far more candidates available for this much needed research if the veterinarian's recommendation is allowed by the DCC and animals are considered patients? This veterinary research would be applicable to humans and further the understanding of the endocannabinoid system, thus furthering the healthcare as we know it. I have to believe that you are all in the position of this board because you genuinely care about the animals and their well-being, the veterinarians you oversee, and the profession as a whole. There will be no political will to take any further action if this bill passes as written. This subject is a very hot topic.
And 3 minutes are up. Our next request for comment is from Stacy Hall. Stacy,
moderator.
Sorry.
I think there was a second comment coming from.
Okay.
Susan Tibbins
Susan
is also at the
Tibbins.
same location.
They're at the same location. But
Okay. So, all right. So I can unmute them again.
Sorry.
Well, hello, good afternoon. Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. This is Susan Tibbin, Lovingly and Legally, and there's been a bit of a break since we had the pleasure of working with you. However, we are indeed still here, and we've continued to interact with the state and the DCC to promote the health and safety of animals, advance the veterinary profession, and the availability of research funds, which leads to the no doubt sincere but woefully misguided support of 1885 on the part of some veterinary entities. As longtime activists in the cannabis space and in Sacramento, we unequivocally assure you that AB 1885 is solely profit-driven, as Paul mentioned. Rather than promote best practice, the bill actually consigns medical diagnosis and decision-making to salespeople or bud tenders at recreational cannabis dispensaries, kind of like consulting your makeup counter person about your diabetes. Our experience working on SB 627 and ancillary issues is that the DCC is not going to and does not insert itself into legislative issues. As Paul succinctly put it, 1885 does not provide parity with medical doctors and their patients. Therefore, no research funds, as stipulated in Prop 64, will be granted and will not be available. Nor does 1885 actually allow veterinarians to recommend. As Paul said, it just means that they can't be disciplined for recommending. The bill in no way protects the consumer, the pet parent, or the animals, inasmuch as these products are going to be in recreational dispensaries available to any person over 21. You know, it's apocryphal that when we brought our pets in a few weeks ago, our veterinarian told us point blank there were no products in dispensaries that he could in good conscience recommend because of his recent experience at 3 dispensaries. One salesperson recommended an edible. It was high in THC. He said it would perk a dog up. The second salesperson told him that there was a tincture that humans used, but you could use it and just use less. And the third counterperson said that she didn't really know about cannabis in pets, but other people had used this medicated soda product and you could mix it with dry food. So, you know, does this help animals? Does it further the profession? It makes me really, really worried that a hyperactive kitty who has hyperthyroidism is going to be given a CBD to
15
calm her down
seconds.
instead of methimazole for hypothyroidism. So what we see then is organ failure because we're not doing our due diligence. We can do better. We should do better. These creatures cannot speak for themselves. They are solely dependent on us. Please consider the consequences of supporting a bill which treats pet parents and animals as a checkbook with no.
Thank you,
And
Susan.
3 minutes are up, and so we'll move on to Stacy Hall. Stacy, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right, Stacy, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right, she did type in the Q&A panel, so would you like me to read what she typed?
Sure, thank you.
Sure, she typed, "My name is Dr. Stacy Hall, and I suppose the use of cannabis in small animals for pain relief, anxiety, and cancer palliative care, I've seen it make a huge difference in the lives of my patients using vet CBD." She continued, "And we vets should definitely be able to be part of the decision for our patients and should not have to hide our recommendations. We need to move away from the black market for these products and bring them into mainstream veterinary care." All right, and then we have a request for a comment from Jeff Pollard. Jeff, you should be able to unmute yourself. And Jeff, you should be getting, there you go.
Hi. I think I would like to mention that there are 4 states currently that have legislation addressing the veterinarian's ability to speak to cannabis in any fashion with their clients. Utah, Michigan, Nevada, and California. California having been the first. Nevada being the most progressive. And you know from previous material that I've submitted, you know that Nevada can recommend, discuss, recommend, and administer. This proposed bill, AB 1885, will advance California veterinarians the ability from discuss to recommend. The comments of the previous individuals, well-meaning notwithstanding, speak more to the financial end of things. This board is not tasked with determining who profits from whatever decision. Rather, consumer protection and what, in this case, a veterinarian can provide a client who, frankly, is already ahead of the curve and doing what they're going to do, whatever the veterinarian says. The best we can hope for is the veterinarian has the cover, i.e. the protection from the Veterinary Medical Board, to give them the best advice. For the moment, this is in Dr. Grant Miller's sage comment, watering hole at the Serengeti. This is the best we can get for the moment. So I fully support 1885. I hope it is viewed similarly by the board. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Pollard.
All right, the next comment is from Lindsay Wendt. And Lindsay, you should be able to unmute yourself. And you're unmuted.
And palliative and end-of-life care for the past 10 years, I'm very much in support of this bill. I feel that this bill allows myself and other veterinarians to be able to practice the high-quality medicine that our patients deserve, recommend safe products to my clients, and therefore live up to the oath that we all took about being indoctrinated into this profession. I thank the board for their time.
Thank you.
All right, our next request for comment is from calling user 18. And you should be getting a prompt to unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes, you're unmuted.
Oh, hi. My name is Jennifer Schmidt, and I have a dog who is blind and has severe high anxiety. She's been on vet CBD for about 4 years now. Sorry, my phone keeps talking to me differently. So my dog has been on vet CBD for 4 years, and I can't imagine my dog having a life without it, because she's a completely different dog when I'm running out. It would be amazing to be able to talk to my veterinarian about this and get recommendations, like you said, instead of just speaking with a bud tender. That's why I would support this bill.
Thank you.
All right, the next comment is from Charles. Charles, you should be able to unmute yourself. And you're unmuted.
Me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. My name is Charles Lozo. I'm a lawyer for 30 years, admitted in New York and California, and I was involved in 1885, in 2215 in 2018, where the Veterinary Medical Board addressed the issue of discussion. I think the previous speaker, Jeff Pollard, was accurate to remind the board that the very narrow issue here is whether we move from discussion to recommendation. These are minor steps if a veterinarian can consult with a pet parent in the context of the consult room and discuss medical cannabis as a litigator, the step to recommend for purposes of the board's power is very small. And we want veterinarians to continue to inch towards leading this new medical application of these molecules. So I suggest the board stay very focused on what, in fact, 1885 is trying to achieve and support this motion today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. I see no further requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And now I'll turn it back to the board for, oh, I'm sorry. We have one more comment from the room here.
Bonnie Lutz. I just wanted to address Jennifer's comment. If you read 4884B, it's very clear as to what it does allow the board to do and not do. And it specifically says that you can't discipline them solely for discussing or recommending. And that solely is something that a judge would understand, most lawyers will understand, the board will understand. It doesn't prevent the board from disciplining a veterinarian for negligence or anything else. It says solely discussing or recommending, and then it gives for specific reasons. So as far as I look at it, it's very clear that the board is still allowed to discipline a veterinarian, just not for recommending, solely for recommending. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Jennifer?
Thank you, Bonnie, and that just proves my point that it takes an attorney to understand this language.
Dr. Barbary.
Yeah, I was looking through, I was trying to, because I remember seeing the prohibit, and then I was like, but I feel like there's something that that clearly said that, you know, not with, and so the language of the bill, I think, is different than the prohibit. That was like an introduction part. So I'm glad you brought that up, Bonnie, because I wanted to tell you that. The other point I just wanted to say is that Susan, her comments actually made the point for us to support this bill, is that, you know, people are going in, and right now the only people they can get recommendations for what products, what dose are these bud tenders, and veterinarians need to be part of that conversation. So.
Thank you. Tara.
I just want the board to consider the two different things that this bill does when you are considering to support the bill. The first thing it does is amend the Veterinary Medicine Practice Act to effectively authorize veterinarians to recommend the use of cannabis, not just for medicinal purposes, but for new potential therapeutic effect or health supplementation purposes. That's a change. The board has had a lot of discussions about cannabis use on animals. That may be something, you know, that directly applies to the board. My concern is just, and really this is the second piece that I'm not exactly sure whether this board has any interest, particularly with the modifications to Malcurza with respect to adding authorization to sell animal cannabis at any retailer. I think that's the corporate concern that Lovingly and Legally have been raising, is that this no longer requires any recommendation by a physician, which is how human patients can go to a medicinal facility to get an appropriate dose. This bill does not require the veterinarian recommendation to obtain the animal cannabis product. Rather, the only thing it does is say, okay, veterinarian, you can now recommend it. So if the animal parent or client went to a vet and discussed and received a recommendation on particular dosage for the particular diagnosis, that may be very helpful to treat this animal. On the other hand, and this really isn't the board's jurisdiction, the client or non-client, the individual who has an animal who doesn't have a veterinarian, can go to any dispensary and get any type of product. It's good that hopefully there's going to be new labeling requirements, so that's helpful, but this is not a new medicinal use for animals like human patients. This is full access to all animal cannabis products at any adult dispensary. So I just wanted to put that out there for your consideration, that there's two things going on at the same time. There's a Veterinary Medicine Practice Act amendment to authorize recommendations of cannabis use. Separately, there's new sales at cannabis dispensaries for animal products, which please be careful about your consideration for support of that situation.
Do you have?
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Bradbury.
Just to follow up on that, right now they already have, anybody has access to it anyway, so I feel like this is a better than what is happening now, and would allow the veterinarian to be a part of it should they look for that guidance. And I agree that's not ideal. I would love it to be the other way around, but right now they already can go into an adult use facility and purchase a product and use it however they choose. So this would, I think, be another layer of consumer protection. Although it may not be perfect, I think it's better than what's happening right now.
Dr. Nunez.
And I would just like to address Jennifer Laredo's conservatism comment that she made. I too am pretty conservative, and as a practitioner, I probably never will recommend cannabis use, but I acknowledge its usefulness I just am not, I don't think I'm properly trained to make the proper recommendations for it, but I do like the options that there will be now veterinarians that I can refer them to that do have the proper knowledge and training to make the appropriate recommendations for whatever particular consideration there is. So it's not telling all veterinarians that they have to now think about using cannabis as part of their treatment plan, but I think most veterinarians are aware that that is now becoming more and more of a viable option for certain cases, and it's going to allow those that have the proper training to make those recommendations, be able to make those recommendations.
Dr. Nolan.
I would like clarification. Again, I apologize if I'm slow on this, but Tara, what you're saying is that a pet owner, pet parent can go into a medicinal cannabis dispensary and get products for their animal right now? Or are you saying that this bill will allow that, which is not allowed yet? And not just a regular, but a medicinal dispensary.
Go anywhere to get it.
You can go.
I believe that they right now are limited to buying products that are just straight CBD. They're not necessarily labeled for animal use because there's no animal use language under MCRSA. My point about medicinal dispensaries is that that's where most patients of a physician recommending cannabis go to get their appropriate dosage and product.
the fact that this bill ties veterinarian recommendation to the new animal use labeling and cannabis product that will be available anywhere is a little concerning, just insofar as I just want to make sure we're clear that this isn't about opening up the door so that veterinarians with their experience and knowledge can, you know, finally talk and recommend to the client cannabis use. They're two different things. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's the animal cannabis will be available anywhere. I would say that the medicinal facilities require the physician's recommendation, and this bill does not provide for that. So arguably, the client could not go to a medicinal dispensary and get animal use cannabis because they don't have a physician's recommendation. This bill does not require a veterinarian recommendation to be presented at a medicinal dispensary. Yeah. So likely the only place they're going to be able to get animal use cannabis is at the adult use dispensary.
And that was part of our discussion before about whether it should be sort of limited to the medicinal use. I guess my feeling on this, I'm troubled by aspects of this bill, and I know obviously that, excuse me, there's no question that there are significant corporations out there that have been marketing CBD, pet CBD for a while. Some were on the calls already in terms of public comment, and they're obviously sponsoring this bill. But it just seems to me that what's happening now, even though it would be great to have this a little bit more limited and have it a recommendation by a vet and things like that, but the bottom line is people are going right now into recreational use facilities and buying things that, and somebody else, a friend recommended or whatever, and I think at least adding a vet component is helpful, and I believe there's enhanced labeling, and I hope it's really detailed labeling about contents and all the other things that is in this bill. And it seems like we're incrementally, this bill makes things better than the current situation, in my opinion, even though it's not quote unquote perfect. Dr. Salcido.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to really have a good understanding of what we're approving or not approving. And I kind of go back to the previous discussions of, like, is this within the purview of the board? The part of the availability of the product, you know, it being labeled for animals, it's not going to be available in the medicinal dispensary and all that stuff. Is that something that we really have any say on? Because it looks like the Department of Cannabis Control is the one who's going to be determining that. So what I think we're approving, or what we're opining on is the ability of the veterinarians to have this discussion. And I don't know what other protection can be done with regards to the product, the dispensing of the product and the use of the product, but I don't think that's within our purview. So, yeah, so I'm just thinking that we should probably be just focusing on what we can do as the board. And I'm thinking involving the veterinarians in the discussion is what we should be focusing on. The part of the availability, and unfortunately, that's not something that we can really have a say on because that's a different department. That's my thoughts.
Thank you.
I'm just going to clarify, you can already have the discussion, you just can't recommend it. So this would allow you to recommend.
Dr. Nolan.
Yeah, I think that we should take Dr. Miller's waterhole at the Serengeti comment and, immortalize it somehow, because I really appreciated Dr. Pollard. I was thinking exactly the same thing. I wish that this bill was very simply allowing veterinarians to discuss and recommend cannabis, and I wish this bill then did require a veterinarian to write a prescription for it, and as they do with humans. I feel like that would have been the very best approach, but it's sort of like, when you don't always get the good without some of the bad, and I really do think it's time to allow veterinarians to recommend products, and I'm really frustrated that it's all wrapped into one big package like this. But I think that, in my opinion, it's time to allow veterinarians that are capable of it to recommend, cannabis products legally.
And to clarify, you won't be issuing a prescription, you're issuing the recommendation.
Right. I wish that we were going the other direction, to be honest.
Any other discussion from the board before we move to a vote? The motion on the floor is to support AB, God, why do I keep
1885.
this bill number, 18, yeah.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Can we come back to me?
Pass.
Dr. Noland?
Yes.
Dr. Nunez?
Did you intend to have so much discussion on cannabis on this day, April 20th?
I know, it's an appropriate day.
My vote is yes.
Dr. Solocito?
Yes.
Ms. Buller?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Motion carries.
How are we doing? Oh, yeah, okay. How about a 10-minute break? Since we still have a number of pieces of legislation to go through.
They want a picture with the board.
Oh, right.
I have to pee. Okay, so if you've heard.
But I want to bring this, I want to. All right. The hour being 2:55, Veterinary Board's back in session. And we're continuing with the legislation report. from Jessica.
All right, we're on AB 2606. It's the CATS decline procedures prohibition. It's very similar to prior bills that the board has opposed. As a reminder, in the past, the board believes strongly that the decision to declaw a cat should remain with the veterinarian and the client. This bill was amended on April 18th, but it was a very small amendment to Section D. It added, before it said the section does not preempt any local ordinance. Now it added and adopted before January 1, 2022. So again, this is prohibiting cat declawing except for procedures performed solely for a therapeutic purpose. And I'll turn it over to the board.
Okay. You know, as a public member, I'm not, this is a procedure that I've never done and probably would never do on my cats, but I'm concerned about prohibiting veterinarians from doing this procedure across the board, and like this bill says, and I know it's done infrequently, and there are different methods to do it, and there are probably some cases where for the human owner it's necessary, and for the safety of the cat at home, in the same home, it's necessary. So my feeling on this bill was before, and I haven't changed my opinion to personally oppose it, and I'll open it up for everybody else, if anyone else. I haven't made a motion, but nobody says
it. I've always thought that the practice of veterinary medicine should not be determined within a legislature's office, and that it should be determined within the exam room. So for that reason, I would oppose it.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
Motion to oppose.
And I'll second it.
Now, having said that, it's not a procedure that I think it definitely is falling out of favor.
Yeah.
And I cannot think of, I know that I'm not denying that there are, but most veterinarians, I think the trend is that it's not a procedure that should be done just to protect the furniture. And I think that a vast majority of the veterinarians out there, including myself, don't do the procedure for any other reasons than medical.
Dr. Nolan?
Well, I agree. I think this is a very archaic, procedure, and I don't think it's really, and maybe I'm ignorant, but I don't think it's done all that commonly anymore. But I do think it's a slippery slope when you start picking out specific surgical procedures to outlaw in a profession that really is about a physician and their patient. So that's my feeling.
Jennifer?
I have not changed my unpopular opinion that I think declawing is disgusting, but I think that I honestly believe that it will still be performed. If we outlaw it and take it away from veterinarians, especially in my neighborhood, you will see it happening in garages, and I just think we need to give clients the ability to have a veterinarian perform that with appropriate pain control and all of the medications.
Is it ready to open to public discussion? Public comment? I'm sorry. Okay, in the room, excuse me, opening up public comment for AB 2606.
Hi, Grant Miller, CVMA. Big surprise, we are opposed to this bill. This is our #1 opposition bill for this year. No different than any other year for a lot of the previous reasons that you have stated here. And so just want to be on record as in opposition.
No other public comment from this room. So let's open this up. Moderator, please, to the online group.
Thank you, Madam President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on Assembly Bill 2606, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or you may simply raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I'm seeing no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, it's closed.
Any further discussion from the board members? I guess we're ready for a vote.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Nolan?
Yes.
Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Dr. Salcido?
Yes.
Ms. Buller?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, next bill is Senate Bill 1031, Healing Arts Board's inactive license fees. This will cut the inactive license fees for all licensees under DCA to half of what they are currently pending. So the board would stand to lose roughly $104,475 per renewal cycle. Staff is concerned that there's still workload associated with maintaining an active license, and there's workload associated in reinstating that license as well. But when you have the inactive license, and if they're practicing in another state, we often still get questions from those applicants, or sorry, from those licensees if they have any convictions or disciplines in another state. That still incurs costs to investigate. And as everybody knows, the bulk of the board's fund comes from renewal fees themselves. And so we are concerned about what this would do to the board's fund if it was passed. With that, this bill was successfully in passing on the 18th from Senate BNP. The analysis that was posted since this memo was done included support from Board of Registered Nursing, California Retailers Association, Occupational Therapy Association of California. In opposition, registered opposition was California Acupuncture Board, Dental Hygiene Board of California.
Jessica, were there any amendments yesterday in the hearing or the day before?
I do not believe so, no.
All right, thank you. Dr. Bradbury.
I understand it might increase our costs. I guess the other side of that in my mind is this may improve access to care by increasing the number of people coming out of or renewing their license that were inactive before, and it may allow some people to start practicing again. So that was my thoughts on the pro side of this bill.
So to clarify, it won't lead to them being able to practice in California. Their license will still stay inactive.
I thought this was if they wanted to they're not, it's not for renewer. Okay.
No,
it's renew their inactive. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dr. Nolan.
Jessica, did you use the recent fee increase when you calculated the 100,000?
Yes, we did.
And do you have any sort of way of quantifying what it does cost to maintain the average inactive license? I know that might be a stretch, but
So we haven't. But one thing to be careful of when you look at how funds or fees are assigned, you have that initial fee, and then the bulk of the fund comes from renewal fees. So you don't do renewal fees based upon the workload associated with that, because it's supposed to support maintaining and the enforcement of as well. And so you don't want to assign a renewal fee purely for the cost of doing the renewal or things like that. Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. I'm just trying to, in my mind, consider whether half of the current fee for a veterinarian would indeed be sufficient to cover the average inactive fee, because I'm fairly certain that the inactive numbers there are not a lot of problems with them. I mean, I would assume that you mentioned being able to research different problems that they had in licensure in other states and whatnot, but I would guess a lot of those are people who just maybe used to live in California, went to school in California, decided to keep their license current in case they want to move back to California. So I guess in my mind, maybe I'm kind of saying what Dr. Bradbury said in a backwards way. I'd like to encourage those people to keep an inactive license, because I'd like to encourage them to think about coming back sometime if they could. So if there was a way to, you know, be able to afford it, I would like to be able to afford it. But again, I think it's hard to find the actual numbers.
Right. And well, and to remind everybody too, the board didn't recently make it easier for out-of-state licensees to apply and get licensed. So you guys have already removed some barriers by eliminating that 2-day course to take the exams. Because if after their license lapsed after that 5 years, they have to reapply as if they're renewing or applying for the first time. You guys have already made it easier for them to come back into California. I'm just I'm concerned about what it does to the fund, and that will lead to increasing fees sooner than we had anticipated.
And in addition to the fund, I'm always thinking of the staff time involved in the communication with inactive licensees. And again, I don't know how much that is, but there probably is communication and work done when they have questions. Dr. Bradbury.
So I was just trying to look at the numbers here from the licensing report that's coming, and it looks like there is about 3,400 delinquent, inactive licensees right now.
So those are two different categories, though. So you wouldn't be able to, you need to look at just inactive.
Well, all I have in front of me is 15,521 as a total, and then when you subtract out the clear licensees from that, that's what's left are those two. So I don't have that number in front of me. All I have are the two together.
Yep.
And so I guess what is making them inactive versus active when they're renewing?
So there's an option when they're renewing to go inactive, and then upon every renewal, they have the option to stay inactive or to renew as active.
And what's the benefit, or why would somebody choose inactive versus
They don't have to do continuing education.
Okay.
And they also, for those who had not been fingerprinted, would not have to be fingerprinted until they renew active.
Okay, that helps. So there's no different fees, it's just that it lowers the requirements in order to, like, would they have to get their continuing education up to speed to renew?
So if they stay inactive, that's another benefit for them staying inactive, is that they maintain that license and wouldn't at any point cancel to have to reapply. It's just after it's been delinquent for the 5 years or they haven't had a license for 5 years that they would have to reapply. But if they're maintaining their inactive, then they wouldn't have to do that.
Okay.
So that's the benefit of it.
Right.
Any other questions? I'll make a motion to oppose 1031.
I'll second that motion.
Any other discussion here from the board, and then I'll open it up? Okay. I'd like to open it up to public comment from individuals in the room, and Dr. Grant Miller's walking up.
Thank you. Saves me having to announce myself. So this bill is actually of great interest to us because it's the only bill in which our internal policy committee had an opinion that differed from our board. So initially our committee said, yep, we need to support this bill, great idea. And then our board met and our board decided to actually disapprove this bill. So we have a disapproved position. Different from oppose in the sense that with an opposition bill, we actually like actively out there knocking on doors. With disapprove, it just means if you stop me in the hallway and ask me, I'm going to tell you that we don't like the bill. The reason is that your budget, your expenses they're absolute. You're going to have expenses one way or the other, and if you're going to get money taken away from one pool, it's going to have to come from another pool. We, as the active licensees, do not want our fees raised again. This has been 5 years of successive fee raises for reasons that precede this rendition of the board and precede this rendition of the board staff. We recognize that. But the profession is wary of fee raises, and we expect that if we have a dip in one area, it's going to come from somewhere else. And the only choice, because this board is required to get fees from licensure, is raising all the other fees. And we don't want to see that happen. And so for that reason, we have a disapproved position.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else in the room running up to the table. So moderator, would you open it up?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on Senate Bill 1031, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or you may simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I'm not seeing any requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I think if there's no more comments by the board, I think we can go to a vote.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Nolan?
Yes.
Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Dr. Solicito?
Yes.
Ms. Bowler?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, that brings us to SB 1495. This is an omnibus bill from Senate B&P and Economic Development Committee. This is the bill where we had asked for 4 things to be added into the omnibus bill. One of them was to remove an obsolete condition in statute related to continuing education that was incurred over 2 decades ago. That was included in the omnibus bill. The other 3 requests have not been included. One of them being that we include NAVDA recognized specialty organizations in our Practice Act. Right now, it unintentionally limited it to AVMA recognized special organizations. The other one was adding an RVT member to the board composition and then adding the definitions for teleconsultation, telehealth, telemedicine, teletriage, and specify how and when that should be used to practice. So I did have multiple conversations with Senate B&P staff on this, and I also met with Christy Pulowski and Dr. Sullivan in the beginning with the Senate B&P and Republican caucus on this. And they had expressed after those meetings that they are really trying to move omnibus bills to their true intent, which was to really just clean up the bill and not put any substantive changes in there. So it's similar to a Section 100 rulemaking package for regulations where it really should have no substance to it, just cleaning it up. So they felt that deleting the obsolete provision was the only one that was non-substantive. After talking to them again, and trying to get the other amendments in, they said that it's likely they would put in the NAVDA recognized specialty organizations. The other 2 are likely not going to be put into the omnibus bill. With that, I still recommend that the board supports the bill since it is cleaning up a part of that we asked for. I think it should be a straight support, but still request that they consider the others. But I don't think it should be a support if amended. I think it should be straight support. With that, I'll turn it over.
Thank you. And I agree with that as well, although it just leads to a different discussion item of how do we try and work the other issues into another bill, and it is a different time of year, and there may be other things we want to get into a bill as well as a secondary bill, but obviously that's, for this bill, I would move to support the omnibus bill.
I'm happy to second that.
Anyone have any questions?
Did you want to support it with the request that the remaining amendments be considered? Do we have to say that?
So I think what we can do is do a straight support, but you can still provide some requests in there, but it's not contingent on that support.
Right. Okay. Right. Any comments, Dr. Nunez?
I mean, I think we take what we can get, and I wonder why the legislatures have now decided to return to what an omnibus bill was intended to be, instead of adding things onto it, but that's a subject for a different time.
no other comments from the board, I'll go to public comment. And this is again on, excuse me, the bill number, I keep forgetting.
SB 1495.
Yep, 1495. I turn the page and then I forget where I am. I don't see anybody in this room. Moderator, would you like to open it up?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on Senate Bill 1495, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Move to a vote.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Nolan?
Yes.
Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Dr. Solocito?
Yes.
Ms. Bowler?
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, and then members, as I had stated in the beginning of this, I'd like to also discuss briefly AB 1733. Brianna Miller mentioned it again in her update as well. This allows the board to continue holding meetings. It kind of reverts back to what we were doing during COVID times to allow members to participate remotely without listing their location on the agenda, as long as we have a public location. So the plan would be we would always have a public location, ideally in Sacramento. And if you aren't able to travel or you wanted to go from another location, like from your private residence, like you were doing in COVID, you would still be able to do that without having to end the meeting. I think yesterday was a good example for the NDC, where we had one of our members participating remotely, and she was not able to attend until 9:30. There was a delay, and we were panicking because we would have had to have canceled the entire meeting. And we had a quorum of the members in Sacramento, and we had people from the public who had flown up to Sacramento to participate. And if that individual was not able to attend, the whole thing would have been canceled. So this bill would allow us to continue without that issue. So I do think that the board should strongly support this bill. And it was scheduled for a hearing today, but it's been postponed. So that'll give us time to put in a support position.
Dr. Nolan.
So I just as a point of clarification, so the person that was not able to attend the in-person meeting here would then not have to designate an open meeting room.
Correct.
Okay. Will we ever move the meetings away from Sacramento like we did in the past?
Yeah. So we can still go Northern and Southern California. It's just we only have to provide one public location. Yeah.
Any other comments or motions?
I've got one more, and
Oh, sorry, Dr. Nolan.
Well, and maybe I should just be quiet here, but it seems that it really encourages the board members right now to try to make the effort to come. And I think that having that onerous of having to schedule an open meeting somewhere else puts a little more emphasis on please come if you can, right? So I do want to support it. I think it's important to support, and it's, I think the technology is great that we have this. But I would hope that we as board members would remember how important it is to be here in listening, especially to our constituents, consumers, and licensees in person. I think it is a respectful way to conduct board business. So I just would add that.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board or motions?
I just want to clarify, so this means that we do not have to publicly notice our location as the example yesterday. So if we are participating but we aren't able to, the meeting continues. We don't hold up the entire meeting?
Correct. As long as there's a quorum and it's at the publicly noticed location, the one single location, then you can continue.
Okay. And I think as the only RVT member, it's been very helpful. I do like coming. It was great to see everybody, and I can have much less distractions when I'm here. But I did share with a couple of the members, I had to give, by a date, whether I was coming or not, then went to the vet. Had I seen my dog's x-rays before agreeing to come, I wouldn't have been here. So I do like that I could still participate from home and not miss the meetings, but we still have the option. And also, we've seen so much more participation from the public, and I think not everybody has the luxury of travel. So I would move that we support this bill.
I'll second that.
And I do agree. The one positive thing this pandemic has done is opened up our technology and on work and on public comment. And it's terrific that people don't have to fly to Sacramento to make a comment. So anyway, all right. No other comments from the board. I will open it to the public. Looking out at the public here. I don't see anyone in this room, so I'll open it to the moderator. Or anyone in this room that's coming to speak.
All right, this is the moderator. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, you may also raise your hand. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's closed.
All right, Jessica, I think we can move to a vote.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Nolan?
Yes.
Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Dr. Solocito?
Yes.
Ms. Bowler?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, and those are the only bills I had slated for discussion, but happy to open it up if any of the members wanted to discuss any of the other bills. But right now, we're monitoring them.
I just really quickly wondering what Dr. Solocito's opinion is on 1881, the Dog and Cat Bill of Rights. I thought that was a fascinating bill.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
There's an Assembly Bill 1881 that's requiring shelters to post the Dog and Cat Bill of Rights. I think it's great. I don't think it would be a burden upon shelters, but if you've heard anything that might cause it to be a burden among shelters.
Fine.
Yes, I would say the problem with like the Bill of Rights, as we know, even if with the humans, it is up for interpretation. And shelters right now are already having a lot of difficulty in making decisions, given the resources, given, the situations that they have to deal with like animals with behavior issues and medical issues. We've experienced where the 5 freedoms are kind of, how do I say this, used in a way to tie our hands into doing the right thing that we think like is best. Because I think a lot of people may overlook the fact that a lot of the shelters, before they come to a decision, it's like the last resort. I'm talking about euthanasia. It usually is a last resort, and we also have to consider public safety. Now, by posting all this, Bill of Rights, my fear is that it depends on the reader. It depends on how they take things, and it may encourage a lot more of making their own definitions, on how shelters need to be managed. And so, I would like to say that in concept, it would be a great idea. I'm a huge supporter for the 5 freedoms to be something that every veterinarian, every pet owner, every be aware of, and yeah. So, but the thing is, I've also seen how it's it's seen and used, you know,
Yeah,
detriment of the animals.
I wholeheartedly approve the first 4 rights. But then when it gets to the 5th one, dogs and cats have the right to regular and appropriate veterinary care. I think people have the right to health care, but not everyone has it in this country. Dogs and cats have the right to be spayed and neutered to prevent unwanted litters. That carries with it financial and logistic responsibilities, and so it started out making me feel happy, but then when I got down the list, it was, how are you going to do all that? And what burden would it sounds simple that all you have to do is post it up at your shelters, but then everything has consequences in this world.
And since we are talking about it, just to let you know, it was amended on the 18th to not just, it can be an either or. You can either provide the copy to the clients or you can post it in a conspicuous place accessible to public view. Just putting that out there.
Do you feel this board should take a position on it?
I did not recommend any
actually
position.
Talking to,
oh, sorry.
I'm not talking to you.
I feel strongly about educating people, and providing information for me is part of the education. But it should not just be the availability of the information. There needs to be an associated active, you know, discussion and, yeah, like educating the people who are receiving this information. So am I supporting it? I would say it's like, it's like a very slippery slope without full definition of how it's supposed to be used. It's like just posting it is not enough.
We currently have no position. Would a watch position be helpful? Just, we've identified some potential consequences.
Yeah, and so how the memo is currently structured, all of the ones on the board monitored, we're going to continue to watch them, and we'll bring you updates. There'll be regular updates so you guys have them. You can take a watch position. It's not going to change the fact that we'll still bring it to you guys.
But will it affect the legislatures?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
And I would, one thing, because amendments have been filed, but it hasn't gone to a hearing yet, is that correct?
Correct, the hearing's on the 26th.
Because it's interesting, I don't think the shelter community who's mandated and the rescue community they're the ones mandated to post these things and actually potentially fined for not posting them, apparently, which is what concerns me. I don't like adding more burdens to already overburdened shelters, personally fining them. But anyway, they haven't taken a position yet, so it might be interesting to wait until we see what happens.
Okay.
Well, and they may have taken a position,
they
we don't
may
know,
have.
because there's no analysis posted yet, and that's where the positions would be.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't mean to say they haven't.
I also envision a little kitty in a revolutionary outfit proclaiming the Bill of Rights for them, for dogs and cats. What goes through my mind?
Are there any other bills on the sort of this board monitored legislation anyone wants to discuss at this point?
Not to keep this whole part going, but I just wanted to ask I've got to go down to it, about the one about the pending complaints and when it was closed and notifying the complainant within 60 days. And where is that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's AB 2948.
Yeah, do we already do that?
So these are two separate things. You have complaints that are filed with the director, and then there's complaints that are filed with us.
Oh,
so
okay.
We have to acknowledge within 10 days of the receipt, and then we send a closure letter out to them. This is regarding the complaint.
Okay, well that explains why it's not higher on our list. Okay, thank you.
I'm just glancing to make sure I don't have any notes on these bills either. All right, should we take public comment on these bills? in case someone has a comment.
You came on the whole agenda item.
And everyone in the room has the agenda, and I know it's posted. So if there's any public comment on bills that haven't been discussed, I think everybody had the chance to comment on the ones we've addressed. And I don't see anyone. So let's open it up, board. Moderator, please. Getting a little loopy here.
Thank you, Madam President. I have opened up the
Dr.
Q&A.
Monitor.
I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on bills not already discussed, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists, or you may simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I'm not seeing any requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next agenda item is the update. And I think, is Tim going to provide it?
Jeff is going
Tim, update and discussion and possible action on proposed regulations and our status. Hi. Oh, sorry, Tim. Sorry.
Thank you, board members. This is my second meeting. Again, this is Jeff Ogwin. I'm the lead administrative analyst.
Is your mic on?
I don't think it's on. Maybe the other one's better.
And make sure to speak right into it.
Is this better?
Thank you.
So just to reiterate, I'm Jeff Ogwin. I am the one that took over Justice Sotelo back in January as the lead administrative analyst for the board. So since that time, taking over Justin, we have started pushing some of the regs through the process based on some of the bills you guys had passed at the beginning of the year. Currently, we do have the updated fees that are getting pushed through, and as of April 7th, those have been pushed through OAL, and we're just waiting for them to process that and to push that out. With the other items, with the civil penalties, we are working with the reg unit, with Karen Halbo, to get those pushed through. We do have budgets looking at the cost analysis on their end to see how that'll affect the board, and we are pushing that through the process as well. To go down the list for the uniform standards, we are also working on that one with budgets as well to get the numbers to get that pushed through based on the prior language that you guys had approved. Yes. Dr. Long?
So when it says pending, that means you're in the process of preparing to submit it in that next column. Is that
yes?
Right? Oh, thanks.
Yes. Yes. So we're basically working with legal to make sure everything's smoothed out and get pushed through the process to go through the next gear in the cycle to get approved. So we also have the other additional the temporary license and the elimination of the California exam has also been worked on and pushed through the process as well to align the regs with what has already been approved through the legislature. Obviously we don't offer that California exam anymore, so licensees don't have that burden on them. Just aligning the regs to get through the process. And if you guys have any questions for me, I'll be happy to. Yes, Dr. Bradbury.
So the fees are where we're, the premise fees going up and the RVT fees are going down. Is that the fee part?
Well, so to clarify, that's already been done through the sunset bill. What this Section 100 did is it cleaned up the regulation because the regulation had set a different fee, but the statute would trump that. So this just cleans it up. Okay. And so the Section 100 that he's referring to is when the board had approved the changes in the statute in the sunset bill. They also had looked at a section for all the regs that were being struck through. So that's what he's talking about.
Cleaning all that up.
Yep.
Okay. Got it.
When it's a simple cleaning up in the Rule 100, after it's submitted to DCA, what's the time period before does it zip through the process pretty easily? Anything can zip through the process?
It depends on how complicated. If it's a Section 100, typically those are faster.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Those are non-substantive changes. You're just aligning the reg with what the statute already says. So for the fees, for example, we're just updating the fees that statutes say you have to assign this amount for, a license or whatnot. So we just have to make the regs match.
Right, same with the elimination of the exam and things like that.
Exactly.
So do we expect that to be, not that it matters because the statute trumps it, but do we expect it to be?
Yeah, so it won't go through, when you look at the initial and final phases, it skips most of those steps. So you don't have to put out for the 45-day public comment period, you don't have to go through all of that review because there's no substantive changes. And so after, right, so after the director approves the package, it goes right to OAL and then it skips all the steps.
Okay.
So it's a lot faster.
Yeah, so just to tack on that, like on a Section 100, it doesn't have to go to agency. So you're skipping some of the steps in the middle to push it through a little quicker.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I know you're, kind of just getting into this and whatnot, but do you find that, is this a fairly prioritized list in some respects? I know that things are in different stages, but is this list fairly prioritized for you?
Correct. I have about 7 right now. I'm really monitoring to make sure we're pushing them through the process as the higher priority. And then once we get to, 8, 9 regs, getting those as well, tugging them along through the process as
Thanks very much.
Mm-hmm.
Dr.
Nunez? It's Dr. Nunez.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I have 2 questions. There was a member of the, I'm not sure if it was the Assembly or the Senate, that asked for us to report on the whole regulatory process to try to...
Senator Roth, I think.
Yes. And was there any outcome of that report that you prepared for him on?
No.
Okay.
Other than the staff put together an extensive report.
All right. And then the one regulation on uniform standards, that was the one where we kind of went against the opinions of the oversight.
Correct.
Has it passed? We're at the next stage where what's the outcome of that?
So right now it's with BCA for the initial review. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, the 4 boxes down. It's with initial, DC
so I
for
just
initial.
want to know, did we make the right decision or we don't know yet?
It's yet to be determined.
Okay. All right.
I do feel that the list is shorter than it's been in the past, and we probably need to add some more to it just to keep you busy, because I'm used to seeing almost 2 pages sometimes of this. So it does show that we've accomplished and gotten things through the process, albeit slowly, but through the process. So we're whittling
through the gears. You guys are doing
winnowing it down. Anyone from this side? Dr. Bradbury? No? All right. Okay, thank you. Well, I guess I want to, Tara, I'm sorry, and I'll open it to public comment.
I'm looking at the chart that's titled Status of Pending VMB Regulations, about the 7th line down, RVT Education. On the current status of that, it says that it's will be pursued after VCPR and telemedicine. Is that a typo? Because it seemed to be that the RVT education package is not related to the telemedicine changes.
Yeah.
You are correct, yeah.
That's not correct, yeah.
So what's the status of that one?
I think it's just pending in the order, so it hasn't been touched right now. Right now it says pending staff revisions to resubmit. But right now we're working on the ones above it. So I think it's just pending.
Thank you.
So that's a good thing to edit. Yeah, thank you. All right. I think that's it for board questions, but I would like to, if anyone in the public has a comment on regulations. Nancy Ehrlich.
I'm Nancy Ehrlich with the California RVT Association. I had a question about the RVT education regulation. There were some comments earlier in this meeting about lowering the 2,000-hour requirement in order to qualify for the alternate route. When will this be? Is this going to be on the agenda for the next meeting? Because that would require amending this regulation.
Everyone's looking at me.
And also, I think we have to address the implementation date of this new regulation. It's intended to go into effect in January 2024. That was intended to give people who were doing the ad hoc alternate route enough time to complete it. But by the time this regulation goes through, it'll probably be 2024. So we may want to push out the implementation date by a couple of years.
I was waiting for the MDC to bring us their report in July.
And that is something that they're looking at. The subcommittee is looking at to see if it impacts or they want to make any changes to the RVT education package. And I think the things that, like the implementation date would definitely be vetted through the process as it goes through. Obviously, there's the public comment period to go through and make changes every time the board can do that. So there's ample opportunity to make amendments to the rulemaking still.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else here, a moderator, would you like to open it up? Can't tell if there are still people online, so.
Yes, we have 12 people that are still signed in, and I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 9, please type comment in the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen and submit it to all panelists, or you may simply raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see none, so shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if we have no more comments, thank you, Jeffrey. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
In person. I think now, excuse me, that brings us to the end of today's agenda. And so we'll go into recess till tomorrow morning. I want to remind everybody, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, we do have special order of business, 2 hearings. Then we'll go into closed session, et cetera. So we'll go through our reports in the morning and make sure we're finished hopefully in time for the special order of business. All right, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you tomorrow at 9, in person maybe.